Hey guys, thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to be going over risk management with XRP. If you guys like this content, please subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on, and check out the description below for various links to social media like Telegram and Twitter. So join those if you get a chance. And if you like to support the channel, you can find that in the information below the video. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about risk management with XRP. Now, I've made risk management videos for Bitcoin and Ethereum, so if you watch all of my videos, I do apologize for the redundancy. But as many of you guys may note, it's, you know, when I show one type of analysis, it's easy kind of just to step through different coins to reach different communities. So here we have it for XRP. So if you haven't seen the other videos, we basically just are plotting the price versus time. And this scale over here is a color-coded dimension, which is based on what some equation I made that defines the risk associated with buying at a given time. And you can see that XRP actually looks quite a bit different than Bitcoin and Ethereum, and in that it stays in this band over here for a very long time, where it's blue, where the risk of getting in seems to be relatively low. And you can see over here as well, as far as the formula is concerned, the risk at getting into XRP now is fairly low. And it can be hard to read these colors precisely, so we just switch it to a quantitative scale as opposed to color coding it, and you can see that for the most part the risk is 0.4 and below for most of the history of XRP in the way I've defined it. So what does this mean? How can we use this? Well, first of all, I've spent a long time developing this because I wanted something that's real time, not a lagging indicator, because if it's lagging, it's too late. You can see that the risk it's shooting up at preceding this last run up in the price, which is very important because it really gives you real-time information. Now, I don't have these graphs updated live anywhere yet. I'm going to be looking to do that. And if you do want to see updated graphs in the meantime, just check out the Patreon account that I have, and you can find that in the description below. But one of the nice things with looking at risk management charts that I've made is that you can develop a plan for buying and selling XRP, and you can stay disciplined to that plan and don't deviate. And historically it would have worked out fairly well. And there's different ways I've gone over in past videos of selling 20% at different increments. But there are other ways of doing it as well. So the first way I look at it is dollar cost averaging is not created equal. So you want a dollar cost average when your risk is lower. So I would, I correspond this to buy zone 1. So this is when you're dollar cost averaging the most into XRP. We are not in buy zone 1 right now. The risk in the way that I've defined it could actually get lower than what it is now. And you can see that we've come into this band 3 times, or 4 times I should say, in the history of XRP. And in this band is when I'm typically dollar cost averaging the most. In the second band, I'm not dollar cost averaging quite as much, and then in the third band, it's even less. And for most cryptocurrencies that I invest in, I basically have these bands going from buy zones going all the way up to 0.3, and once it gets above 0.3, it becomes less clear. So for this one, I have a gray area between 0.3 and 0.4. I try to give my own or try to use my own interpretation of the market sentiment to try to decide where things are going. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, which is why I only have one gray region. Anytime we're down here, I'm more or less buying, but as I mentioned, I'm buying much more down here than I am up here. So then, you could be buying or selling in the gray region, but then once you get up to a risk level of 0.5 to 0.4 to 0.5, that's your first sell zone. And this is a region where you likely want to start offloading some of your position in terms of a risk management standpoint. You can see that actually, over here you would have come into that region, and of course we've entered it several more times. So if you wanted to be like, say, conservative with your approach, you could just sell 20% at each increment. So you sell 20% at sell zone 1, sell zone 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if anything is up here, that's essentially just gravy on top. Now you might say, well, if you're selling 20%, then you're not really left with anything. And that's true if you're evaluating it based on, say you take the total number of XRP, and then you just, you sell 20% of those of your entire total original amount. You sell 20% of those each cycle, or you could just sell 20% of the new total, or you could weight it in terms of US dollars as opposed to, say, XRP. So there are ways you can have some left over, but the point is we don't know that we're going to get over here, and in fact, in the next cycle, we didn't make it all the way up. In terms of this risk equation, we only made it up into the fourth band. So it's easy to get greedy. It's easy to think, well, what if it goes up, a little bit more? But the way I see it is if you stay disciplined and you sell when you say you're going to sell, and you buy when you say you're going to buy ahead of time, then it makes life a lot easier. You don't worry. You buy in those regions. You buy in the regions down here, you sell in the regions down here, you hope that the market cycle repeats. There's obviously no guarantees, but in some sense, if you are bullish on XRP for the long term, and in that it, hoping to repeat its market cycle, then it might make sense to hope that the price, that the risk goes down in the short term. And I should note that the price does not actually have to go down for the risk to go down. It's not how I've defined it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Right now, the way it stands, the risk is around 0.2, which historically is really not a bad time. I mean, there's definitely been times where 0.2 was more or less a bottom to the risk level. But I'm not saying we can't go lower, and in fact, if we go lower, if we go into, if we go down to here, then that is where I would certainly be buying the most XRP in terms of dollar cost averaging compared to other months or other weeks where I might be dollar cost averaging XRP in other bands. So one of the reasons I like this method is because it more or less, assuming there is a market cycle, which is a big assumption, but assuming there is a market cycle that goes through another bull run, you will profit because you're buying, way down here. And so the price is on the left. So the blue line corresponds to over here, this log scale, and then the orange corresponds to this right one over here. But more or less, you're buying in regions where the risk is low. So, like, for instance, the price over here right now corresponds to a risk of 0.2. You're buying when it's low, and if the risk does go up to, say, up to, say, 0.5 or 0.6 or so, if you start selling, say, percentages of your portfolio in increments, then, as I mentioned in previous videos, you hope the price goes up because then you can continue selling more, or you can continue selling, say, the same amount of XRP but for a higher price. And if it goes down, then you can be happy that you sold near the top, at least the short-term top. And then if it goes down into, say, back into, say, the gray region, so you could have been selling on the way up, it comes back down into this gray region. You start placing those buy orders again if you want to place your bets that it's going back up. And that's something that any individual has to decide on their own. Now, one of the things I want to mention here is that this is what the graph looks like. So again, price on the left, risk on the right, it's logarithmic scale. And I'm not showing the equation because I just don't want to show it right now in front of such a large audience to have it put under the public eye. in terms of what the actual equation is. But I will be hopefully working, or I will be making a website soon with someone, and hoping we can get those those graphs up for you guys. Now, in the meantime, how can you guys play around with something like this? What's something you can do? And I've showed this in other videos. Well, it's simple. You just play with moving averages. Now, what I've done is not just simply play with moving averages, but it's something that you can do. So what you can do is just say, for example, you can take, say, the 50-day over the 50-week, or the 200-day over the 200-week. You can take, say, an exponential moving average. But the point is you want to take a shorter term over a longer term to try to determine what your risk is. And you might notice that the risk is between 0 and 1, whereas the ratio between those would not always fall between 0 and 1. And that's why you need to normalize it. So make sure you normalize it to get it between 0 and 1. And one of the downsides to the moving average approach, and a lot of people, if you're curious about the moving average approach, join my Telegram. Some people have already made some scripts that you can use to generate these if you're not familiar with programming. The downside to just using the moving averages is that they lag, so you can see that they peak after the peak, so it's not quite as informative. But it can be something that you guys play with. I mean, just pick different moving averages, see what you get, see if you get something that might be useful to you, and then manage your own risk appropriately. No one can, at the end of the day, no one can tell you how to manage your risk. You have to do that on your own. And if you went through the last market cycle and didn't sell, I'm sure you learned a good lesson in risk management. Because basically what many people did is they just held on, and they thought the cryptocurrency market was just going to be going to a market capitalization of 10 trillion, and then lo and behold, we didn't make it to 1 trillion, and things came tumbling down. So I've mentioned this before, be the smart money, don't be the dumb money. Try to get into the market when the risk is low. Try to get into the market when it makes the most sense to get in terms of a risk management standpoint. And then when later on, when the market starts picking up and more money starts coming in, that's when you're selling. That's when you're selling to these other people that were not in early. You've done and to some degree, you've already done a lot of work just by being here. Think about it. I mean, think about how niche this is right now. Not only are you in crypto, you're also then in XRP. Not only are you in XRP, but you watch crypto YouTube videos. And not only are you watching crypto YouTube videos, you're watching a crypto YouTube video by someone who has 7,000 subscribers on risk management, and you've probably never heard of me before. It's a pretty niche area in terms of the entire globe of people. And if money comes pouring into the market because of another huge speculative bubble, then you don't want to just sit on your investment and not do anything with it, because then you're not taking advantage of the fact that you got in before people. They could end up making more money than you, because if they come in and speculate and then sell it, say 2 or 3x, and you just hold all the way up and all the way down, you might be doing worse than people who didn't spend the years getting into the market, learning about the cryptocurrency, understanding what it's used for. So hold on to that. Make sure you're taking profits. Holding is just a meme. When people are showing that on Reddit or wherever they're showing it during the speculative bubble phase, that's typically when you want to be selling. It's typically when people are saying the price is just going up through the roof, when people are making constant price predictions that are not based on anything other than what number they want to throw out in their head, or maybe it's what number they need it to get to reach a certain valuation, as if we know many of us have done that at some point in our careers as cryptocurrency investors. So consider all of these when preparing for a potential next bull run. Now, I've often said that I don't think the next bull run is going to occur, or at least the next peak I don't think is going to occur until maybe the end of 2022. Obviously, put a year tolerance on that, but we want to be ready for when it happens. So prepare now, plan now, mentally know what you're going to do now, because if you don't, when the market comes and changes, you're not going to be ready and you might miss out. So one thing that we're considering potentially doing is putting up a website where, and we are putting up a website, but basically, allowing you to subscribe to different portfolio management types. So let's say you want to have a conservative portfolio. Then you say you enter your email, and it might send you, say, a notification when XRP enters, say, sell zone 1. And if you've chosen, say, like a conservative approach, then maybe it'll say, sell 20%. Maybe it'll say to sell 20% in each level for a conservative approach. Then maybe if you choose an aggressive approach, it'll say in sell zone 1 only sell 10%, and then in sell zone 2 sell 20, in sell zone 3 sell 30, in sell zone 4 sell 40. I would love to know what you guys think about that idea in the description or in the comments below. I think it could be useful to some people who don't have the time or the energy to track the market on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or even month-to-month basis. But maybe you just want some type of metric that you learn to trust, and you want to ensure that you're taking profits and not just sitting on your investment. So let me know what you guys think about that idea. So again, that's mostly it. So I just wanted to overlay this. This is just comparing XRP risk over here with Bitcoin risk. And they do look quite a bit different. XRP stays in this low risk area for much longer than Bitcoin does, and it's basically because when XRP moves, it moves in a very short window. If you're just not paying attention, and you sleep on it, you sleep on the cryptocurrency market for a few weeks, you might come back and this has happened, and you're like, oh man, I wish I had been paying more attention and tried to hit that peak there when it turned dark red. So just put these things in perspective. Just add it as a tool to your toolkit in terms of managing your own risk in your own portfolio. Again, if you guys like the channel, please subscribe. Check out the Telegram channel where I'm pretty active if you want to ask questions and shoot around ideas. And if you want more access to this type of content, then check out my Patreon, which you can find the link to in the description below. Until next time, guys. Bye.